Well, welcome listeners to the first episode of the Hemmingford Legacy Bond Project. We are talking about the Hemmingford Legacy Bond, which will be on the ballot May 13th. We are honoring our past, building our future. So here today, we have Mandy Plogue, we have Tim Ruby, and Betsy Sorensen. Sometimes I have to think a little bit with names, don't mind me. But this big question that comes up all over, I think, is why now? Why do we need this bond now?
Yeah, so I guess my name's Tim Ruby. I own a small business around Hemmingford here, and we also ranch. And I just wanted to look at this with a little bit of an analogy that a rancher or a farmer might look at things. And when you first start your business, you might use an older piece of equipment to get by. And after a couple of years, you've decided, okay, this deal's costing us money on repairs. It's no longer safe. It's not working the way we want it to. And we just need to upgrade and have something new. And so then you start looking around and yeah, this is going to cost a lot of money. This is not going to be free. This is not going to be easy, but is it worth it? And so you start, you might visit with your wife about this and she's like, yeah, we spent X amount of dollars on repairs last year that we could have easily put towards a new piece of equipment, tractor, combine, whatever you have you. And oh yeah, and the one door don't latch, so it's not safe. Or in our case here, which we'll talk about later, we're barely legal, so I can barely drive this pickup down the road. If the highway patrol pulls me over, it might not go well. So all these things are coming into play with this building. And I just challenge everybody to look at it from the aspect of a business owner, rancher, farmer, small business owner, whatever. And when we talk about these issues, think about them as if you would on your own business. Yeah, it's going to be expensive. It's not going to be free. It might even hurt a little bit, but this is something we need to do moving forward for safety standards, to be legal, to be more efficient, all those things. So I guess that's my start on why now.
Very, very good. Very nice. Mandy, what about you? From your perspective, why now?
I'm Mandy Plogue. I'm the special education director at the school. And when the school board and the administration team started to talk about we need to do a complete facilities audit to see where we have some things we need to work on, I pulled up notes that I took at a meeting 10 years ago that said, we definitely need an elevator. We have a 2-story elementary building that has no way to get students up to the second floor. And in those 10 years, we'd had students with, that were on crutches. We had one student that uses a walker and a wheelchair, and we had no way to get them to the second floor. So we had to rearrange classrooms. I do not want to be here 10 years from now, looking back at my notes and saying, we really need an elevator. When you had mentioned that we are barely meeting the law, because we don't have any required services or programs that our student in wheelchair had to get to on the second floor, because we rearranged classrooms and because we made sure that anything she needed to access was on the first floor, we were meeting the letter of the law. But those students, herself and then the other students in her class, didn't get the experience of moving up to that second floor, of getting to feel like they were getting to be bigger kids to get to go up those stairs, because we didn't have the elevator. And like I said, I don't want to be here 10 years from now saying we need an elevator.
Right. Mm-hmm. Betsy, what about you? Why now?
Even just going off of what she said, even though like maybe the select few that weren't able to get up to the second floor, the ones that were up there aren't able to safely exit. Like we have one exit to get down. I mean, is it like 80 kids at least between all 3 different grades? So, I mean, regardless of shuffling kids around, it still isn't safe for the ones that are still up there. But I guess why now, I've lived here for 10 years and it's always been the modulars. Like my husband always says, like, we were going to get rid of these modulars 20 years ago. They were supposed to be a small fix, not a
temporary fix,
forever fix. So, I mean, it's probably not why now, but yeah, like it's been needed to be done. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's an important thing that
Mhm.
we finally get to that point of taking care of some of these things.
Yeah.
Another comment that we've heard is, my kids won't be in school
Yeah.
by the time this is
Yeah.
done. Why would I want to pony up this money for something that my kids will never use? And I guess my discussion on that is, if you're at Hemingford, you're here for a reason.
Right.
You love the community. You love raising your kids in this community. You've raised your kids in this community. So why wouldn't you want it to be even nicer for your grandkids?
Right.
I mean, if you love this community that much, then obviously you probably want your kids to raise their kids in the same type of community. So yeah, maybe, my daughter might be still in school when this is done, but I could say the same thing. Hey, my kids will probably be graduated by the time this is over, but if you enjoyed your experience here and you love the school here, then hey, you're just building for the future,
That is true. I mean, our elementary building is 100 years old, and I mean, there's been a lot of young people that have come through that. And the neat thing is, you look around us, is there's generations that have gone through that building. And it would be really nice for generations more to go through our school and our building, and to have this here for them. And I think that's such a wonderful point to be made. It's for the next generations. Okay. So what happens if we don't act now? That's a big question, I think, that has come up in conversations.
I would like to talk about that. I keep worrying if we don't do something, because I was here during the last bond issue that was unsuccessful. I was here back when we talked about needing the elevator 10 years ago. At some point, there will come a time when we don't have a choice, and we will have to do something with the modulars, with maybe putting in an elevator. And wouldn't we much rather do it on our timetable, after going through all the work and doing the bond in the correct way and trying to get the best interest rates with the bond and trying to do it the right way, instead of getting to a point where we absolutely have to, like the modulars fall apart, like in a cartoon where the walls all just fall out. Wouldn't we rather be proactive and do it on a planned, systematic way that we have control over, than to get to the point where we don't have a choice and we have to make these repairs and they need to be done immediately? Or can we do it now so that we have a way to get some of those things done before it's an emergency?
When you talked about the modulars, and eventually I foresee that is not going to be legal to not be attached to the building.
We are right on the edge right now.
Lock things down if it needs to be locked down. And I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but the safety issue of just that being several, or was it 2 different buildings there that you cannot just lock them down with everything else. And I just think that it's just a bad scenario that we're in. And eventually somebody's going to look at this and say,
you don't
this will not fly.
Right. Yeah. Things don't improve with age. Typically, they kind of deteriorate.
Yep.
So,
Even cost. I mean, look at from 4 years ago, was it, or 5 years ago, when they tried to do it the first time, like it's like doubled in cost, and we're going to get less. So the more we keep pushing it out, the less we'll get, and the more money we'll have to spend.
Right. So how does the bond provide long-term sustainable solutions?
I will take that on a little bit. I think anyone that has kids and sends their kids to Hemingford, like you said, there's a reason you come here. I am so glad that I was able to have my kids go to school here and not have them go to a big school like Alliance or Shadron. But at some point, if we don't continue to have good facilities, the newer generation won't be sending their kids here. And I think it's probably not a hidden fact that if the school closed down in Hemingford, there wouldn't be much of a community left. there wouldn't be the people to be able to support the businesses. There wouldn't be activities for our older retired people to go to. If the school in Hemingford closed down, Hemingford would have a hard time continuing. So we need to keep our school so that it's sustainable, so that we can keep our good town. We want Hemingford home to be there far in the future. And if our school isn't here, the community won't be here.
And I want to add to that too. They're going to add, with this proposal, they'll double the ag shop essentially. And I run a service business, and I tell people all the time, if you're willing to work and willing to get your hands dirty, you'll never starve, you know? And I just feel like there is so much that kids can learn up at that building. They may not go on to be a professional welder or a professional woodworker or whatever, but they will have a skill set that they can fall back on, or something that they can use. You know, you go up there and learn how to weld as good as a professional, and then go home and farm or ranch, and you have that skill. I just think in the long run that the ag program is just a great asset, especially to a rural community and farming community. So
Absolutely.
Absolutely. All right. So this is a chance to shape the future of Hemingford schools. How can people help? We've got committees out. What would you encourage people to do to take part in this process?
Probably come to the community meetings and like hear the information direct and not the rumors that maybe are spread, or, you know, like, or they're going to have the yard signs up and the QR codes are on them. Like right there, you could get the correct information.
Yeah. Be informed.
yeah,
Be
ask
informed.
questions. Yeah.
Whatever way you end up voting, don't vote based on what your neighbor says. Vote based on what you know, what you've decided, what you've thought over. Do it based on information.
Right. The town hall meetings on April 7th and April 23rd are going to be really great avenues of getting information and asking questions. You know, maybe what is out there in the information doesn't address what you want to know. Absolutely come and show up to the town hall meetings and ask your questions. We want to be able to provide as many answers as possible and help people understand what this is all about.
I think something to kind of keep in mind too is there might be 90 different ways to solve the issues we have, but our school board has really worked hard on coming up with the best way to spend our money the most efficiently and to solve the biggest issues they've found. And so a little bit like, you know, you can tear this all apart and say, why didn't they do A and why didn't they do B? But I think a little bit is we elected those guys and they have worked their tail off, and they've probably already thought of the questions, you know, or they probably went through some of the scenarios where you're like, why didn't you put this room over here? And it's fine to still ask them those questions, but also trust that these guys have really worked really hard at this. And yeah, maybe it's not exactly how you would have built the school, but they're trying to use our money the best way possible. And I commend them for their work they've done on it. I can't imagine.
I'll say thank you from the board. Thank you. There's been a lot of people that have put a lot of time into looking at all of the information, and yes, if we could have had absolutely every little thing in there, we would have loved it, but money is not an endless supply. So trying to get the best we can out of and with the least amount of money possible has definitely been at the forefront of everybody's mind as we work through that.
I think along with the money issue, one of the biggest questions people are going to talk about is the gymnasium.
Oh, sure.
And
Yeah.
maybe we can spend a little time explaining.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, what the board has set up to do with the new gym or the additions to the gym, and maybe why there's not a whole new gym.
Right. The adding on the gym, of course, obviously is cost. Putting a gym on there, and that just didn't seem like something we felt comfortable bringing to the table at this point by increasing the cost. We really feel like tackling the greatest needs first. And so, but at the same time, our gym is a little crowded in the front entry. And if anybody has been there for events, especially wrestling events,
the restrooms
and the restrooms, I stopped over there at the youth wrestling just this last weekend, and I went into the bathroom, and there's all these people coming in, and nobody knew who I was. And every single woman that came in that bathroom said, "Oh my goodness, these are so tiny. Why did they make these bigger?" And I'm just hearing every single one complained about the bathroom. And I'm just kind of chuckling to myself, and I'm just listening, but it is. And then a dad didn't realize there was a family bathroom, and he had his little girl, and he had to cover her eyes, and he's like, "Okay, come on, honey." And so it was quite a educational moment just going to the bathroom on last Saturday. But we need a little bit more space there, and to update those facilities to accommodate. And we felt like that might be a really good compromise right now, and a good use of funds to improve that, and then lay the infrastructure and leave the things open for possibilities. You can only do so much at one time, but I think we're all open-minded to what the future has to hold, and we'll just see.
And then the other thing is they added on what do you call this area?
The cafeteria
Like the cafeteria.
commons, the
Yeah.
commons area.
And so the thought there is that some of these assemblies and stuff like that could be over there
Right.
to save on crowding of the
Crowding
gym.
of the gym, or displacing the PE class from the gymnasium. Maybe some, obviously there's still big events that won't be able to be accommodated in that space. Graduation would be an example. You're still going to use the gym for graduation, but it is nice to have that multi-purpose space. It can be used for a lot of things.
Yeah, like a school assembly or something like that. Yep.
Well, and the lunch flow, like that's gonna be huge.
It'll be very good.
Yeah.
Right.
For some of you that haven't been at the school and didn't come up for the youth wrestling, we are on those community meetings having tours. So if you haven't been up at the school for a long time and want to take a tour and see some of the reasons why we think now is the time for the bond, please come. We'll have the tours available at those community meetings on April 7th and April 23rd. But also, if you're unavailable to come to the school for those, we're also setting up tours at any time. Just call the school, talk to Molly Turek, the elementary secretary is the one that will answer your phone call, and we can schedule a tour at any time. We really want people to see the school as it is now, and to really see with their own eyes why we need to be doing some of these changes.
I think it's from like noon to 6. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Any other comments, Betsy?
No, I'm golden.
You're golden? I don't know if we have a little bit of time left. I might as a sport, but our girls have been practicing, I think, on the stage some, if I'm not mistaken.
On the stage some, in the little gym some, wherever they can find a space, because they don't have a dedicated practice space. And it makes it hard, because we have a dedicated space for when girls basketball wants to practice, or when volleyball wants to practice, or football wants to practice. They don't have to think, now where are we going to go tonight? And if we truly want to support our kids and support our girls in their new sport of wrestling, which we had a state qualifier this year, and it just keeps growing and growing, they deserve a spot too. They deserve a space. And so with some of the remodeling and renovations, even though we aren't building a brand new gym, there will be space for them to have their own girls wrestling practice room.
Have a practice room and a space for them to practice. I think that's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, another issue that we should probably touch on, since the two of you here work in the school and the education, classroom size.
Yes. So we have some classes that are very large. Our current 4th grade class that'll be in 5th grade next year, we're anticipating having 42 kids next year, which, 21 in a classroom that was built for maybe 15 is not ideal. Also, over the years since our elementary school was built, our humans are bigger now. We have a lot bigger children than they used to be. We also have different ways of educating children. It used to be you would sit in your one little desk, look at the teacher, and maybe take some notes. Now they're doing activities, they're doing science experiments in their classrooms. They're moving from station to station and center to center. And the size of our classrooms are not set up for today's students and for today's education. Also, we are really fortunate. We use a lot of technology in our classrooms now. Our students have access to Chromebooks, and when we do our assessments, they have their Chromebook. Each individual student has a Chromebook on their desk. If you have a Chromebook on a desk and a sheet of paper, the desk size also has to be bigger. We just need more space, and some of our classrooms are not built for the needs of today's students.
Yeah. And just being a sub, bouncing from classroom to classroom. I was in 4th grade just last week, and it is hard. Like, you have a tiny kidney table, but it's like in the corner of the room because there's 21 students taking up the majority, and they come back to ask you questions and you're just crowded. Like, there's just not space to work around with them or to, like, and then you try to go to each kid's desk and you're like bumping into kids. You're like, so teachers have gotten bigger too. So it's not any situation. But classroom sizes are, they're tiny for sure.
We're able to also add, even though our main focus, modulars and doing some of these other needed things, we're able to add a couple new classrooms, like a STEM classroom. And most of you might know, but STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math. And so with that classroom, we'd be able to offer some of those higher technical classes in high school for those students that do want to go into advanced college classes.
Well, and we're getting a STEM place in the elementary so that our elementary kids can even start having exposure to some more of that, which is a really big push now. And that's exciting to be able to offer to elementary.
Some of our elementary classes, Jim Miles has done a really good job, but some of them don't even have the outlets that are needed. And so when we do this renovation, if the bond passes, we'll be able to upgrade not only the physical way that it looks, but also some of those infrastructure things that we don't even think of, like, does the classroom have enough outlets?
That's a good point.
And storage for teachers. Like, their rooms are so small, they have.
I
no
noticed
place
that
to put
walking through, it is definitely a big need.
Well, and I saw and I might be looking at it wrong, but the art room in the elementary, I mean, you think about our art teacher, she has K through 12 and all their projects in one room. Like, how nice that you would have K through 6 and a 7th, like, to spread out the art projects so that they don't get lost or broken, because it's a lot of kids going through there.
Well, and you use different supplies and different materials for each section and age group. And so it will help her in her space.
Yes, for sure.
To have that in 2 different locations, and she can just move.
Yeah. And all those little kiddos going through when the bell rings. It's kind of dangerous for those kindergartners, because they sometimes have to go through the high school hallway. Like, if it's cold and they can't go outside, they go through the high school, and they do try to get it to where it's not during bell time. But I mean, things happen. And they're, having to make the trek through the whole high school during passing time.
That could be a little intimidating.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Teachers here too, but my experience is usually parent-teacher conferences. And I know when I've gone into the elementary school, it's just like you ladies have all said, there's a lot of stuff in a very small area. And I know that, there's no kids in there when I'm in there. So, and it still just seems like there's a lot going on. So.
That's true. That's true. Well, this has been a really great discussion, and it's been really good to hear from all of your perspectives, and it's been an enjoyable time. So thank you for coming along and sharing this information with us all.
Thank you.
Thanks.